For those of you who don't already know, I was raised on a steady intake of Gene Kelly helicoptering and Rodgers and Hammerstein. Hi, I'm LadyJenevia, and on my channel I like to talk about entertainment media. Apparently, the industry and the audience are out here acting wild about movie musicals, and as a lifelong enthusiast for the genre, I've decided to jump into the discourse. How did we get here, you may ask? Well, there was a quote from a Deadline article that was making the rounds on social media. I try not to overly partake in engagement bait, but this is movie musicals we're talking about, so here we are. It was reported by Deadline that studios are not marketing musicals as musicals because test audience focus groups generally hate musicals, and the only way to get people into the theater with one is to trick them. And I took that personally. Why are you studios taking these testing screenings so seriously? You want me to believe that those work?
Hello, this is fraud. On a global scale.
You want me to believe that you don't have a skewed sample pool? Where is the data? If you don't let me see it, I'm not trusting it. Research papers don't get published without giving the statistical breakdown. You have to have charts, you need to report your sample size, all of those types of details. Have any of you ever done a dissertation?
I'm considering it. The problem is I hate reading. I get bored.
Also, a lot of academic research can tend to have skewed sample sizes or sample pools because people having to do research at universities, who's nearby, available, and willing to participate? University students. So who exactly are you getting to be in these test audiences? I don't know exactly because you have not sent me the statistics, but I am confident that there are extenuating circumstances that will in fact be skewing the makeup of your test audiences in this or that direction. I know with absolute certainty that there are loads of people who will be more than happy to cheerlead movie musicals and give the majority of them a fair shot. If your test audiences consistently hate them, that's a you problem. You're not gathering the right people to vet your new movie musicals the same way you're not taking the correct approach when it comes time to market new movie musicals. I'm standing right here. I didn't get a phone call, a text message, an email, or a DM. Let me be clear, since a lot of people like to conveniently leave this out of the conversation. Musicals and musical numbers have been a part of film history for more or less a century. Everyone likes to reference the golden age of movie musicals because, of course, it's an iconic, beloved era. But it's not just that. Even the Marx Brothers had musical numbers in their movies. Harpo and Chico would take a moment to play a number on the harp or the piano. The all-black dance group, Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, made an appearance in A Day at the Races. People love a good song and dance. And if you think you don't, you're lying to yourself. The kids are out here building social media platforms, doing dances that were created by Black creators, and you think a song and dance isn't an inherent part of the human condition? How exactly does it feel to live in denial? The golden age of movie musicals is largely associated with figures like Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, Gene Kelly, Judy Garland, and moreover, that glorious Technicolor. Admittedly, the bulk of Fred and Ginger's collaborations were in black and white, but speaking purely on an aesthetic level, if you ask someone at least superficially aware of the concept what they think of when they think of the golden age of Hollywood movie musicals, it might be something like Marilyn Monroe doing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, the pink dress, the red background, or perhaps Gene Kelly in a yellow waistcoat dancing with Sid Charisse in a green dress on a red backdrop. The look is so distinct and entirely iconic. Mind you, Technicolor doesn't mean film in color. It's a particular type of color process in filmmaking that isn't really around anymore. The technology, the cameras, everything about the process is different now. I don't want to overly explain the golden age of movie musicals because I'll be here all day just talking about how iconic Gene Kelly is, how whomever made that one fan cam of him in The Pirate needs to be given a Medal of Honor for their contributions to the world. Don't act like you don't know which fan cam I'm talking about. It perfectly loops and everything. You don't understand how I feel about Gene Kelly. To this day, the greatest moment of me having a YouTube channel was the fact that I got George Chakiris, the Oscar-winning Bernardo from West Side Story 1961, who is on my wall in every video, to come do an interview with me, and among other things, he told me stories about working with Gene Kelly that I had never heard before. I will never in my life have that few degrees of separation to Gene Kelly, the man, the legend. Now, if I keep talking about the golden age of movie musicals, I'm inevitably going to find myself challenging Tom Holland to a match of fisticuffs, because where the hell do you get off saying you're going to play Fred Astaire in a biopic when that man put it in his will that no one is allowed to play him? He doesn't want a biopic. So you doing exactly what he didn't want would be spitting on his autonomy. Let that Fred Astaire biopic stay buried in the pits of development hell where it belongs, because it's a bad, disrespectful idea. Throw it in the garbage.
Demon! I will kill you as many times as I have to.
The other possibility of digging too deep into the golden age of Hollywood movie musicals would be me just fully crying talking about Judy Garland, because that woman was and is forever an icon, not just for her skill as a performer, but for her heart and her humanity. Look up the expression friend of Dorothy if you don't already know what that means. Random trivia. Did all of you know that one of Judy Garland's daughters, Lorna Luft, was in the best Grease film, Grease 2, which is also on my wall? She played Paulette, who is an icon. I get everything whenever I watch her put Johnny Nogarelli in his place.
Maybe you can bully some of the chicks in this school, but this chick has been bullied by one Johnny Nogarelli for the last time.
Regardless of the fact that the golden age of movie musicals eventually ended, the movie musical never went away. So what exactly are the main differences between that point in time and now? Plenty of movie musicals during this golden age were original works. Songs and dances were being built from the ground up specifically to make these films, whereas now, more often than not, the movie musicals are adaptations of a musical that already existed in live theater. Musicals with successful runs on Broadway, the West End, and so on and so forth, much like a book that becomes a bestseller being fast-tracked for a film or television adaptation. Such is the case for financially profitable musicals. Another key difference between then and now: the stars and the singing. The Golden Age had certain stars, many of which I've already mentioned: Fred and Ginger, Judy, Gene, people who repeatedly appeared in movie musicals. That's not something specific to the musical genre either. The entire studio system was different back then. Stars would have contracts with specific studios that would more or less own you. It was a lot of exploitation. Louis B. Mayer is disgusting, and I'm glad he's not around anymore. Nowadays, even the most famous actors tend to float around to different genres. They're not usually contracted to specific studios, and for that reason, unless you're a stan for a very specific person, most moviegoers are not going to show up to anything and everything a particular performer is booked in. The singing approach is different between then and now, because today we have a demonic little invention called auto-tune that can be used to do some seriously heavy lifting for people who cannot sing. And in the old days, if someone either couldn't sing or just didn't sing well enough for the powers that be, you'd just hire another singer to do the singing for them. You take West Side Story 1961, Marnie Nixon and Jimmy Bryant did Natalie and Richard's singing. The actors did the acting, and the singers did the singing. Christopher Plummer didn't do his own singing in The Sound of Music. Some of the lead actors in South Pacific also had their singing dubbed. And I know I'm blurring the timeline a bit with the release dates for some of these films that I'm mentioning and when the golden age of Hollywood movie musicals is said to have ended, but I'm speaking more so about a general trend, tendencies, and practices as far as the logistics of filmmaking goes. Now, I'm not merely inclined to do this video because I happen to love a good movie musical. I've developed a whole new dimension to my appreciation for the concept because of the economic aspects as they apply to what benefits the audience. Being that many of the modern movie musicals are adaptations of stage musicals, I think that these film adaptations are essential for accessibility. Going to the theater tends to be incredibly expensive and also challenging depending on where you live. Everyone should have access to musicals, and making them into movies helps to ensure that. Even an overpriced movie ticket is bound to be more affordable than a lot of Broadway tickets. Admittedly, in the grand scheme of things, if you're really struggling to get by, maybe you are not able to go to the cinema as often as you would like, if ever. I don't want to sound first world by painting a cinema ticket as something something affordable, but I'm merely comparing the affordability and accessibility of cinema tickets compared to trying to go and see live theater. If you do a bad movie musical, not only are you harming the reputation of movie musicals in general, you are also blocking a whole lot of people from discovering a show that they did not have an opportunity to see live. How many people now think that Cats is a terrible musical when if they had just watched the 1998 direct-to-video version instead, they probably would have had a fabulous time? John Partridge, you had me at meow.
Meow. Meow.
If you studio executives are wondering why the modern audience allegedly hates movie musicals, it's not rocket science. It's because we're coming off a slew of bad ones. If you studio executives would simply learn your lesson by saying no to James Corden and saying no to the Platts, the genre would have a much better reputation among the casual masses than it currently does. You don't need to convince musical fans that the genre is great. We already know that. The movie musical never went away. It has stayed a fixture across all the decades since that golden age ended, and even if it's not a full-blown movie musical, the people still love to see a good musical number. Chicago won Best Picture. More or less every Baz Luhrmann movie is a musical. Even if it's not, yes it is. Quite recently, we had a movie musical called Dicks. Did you all see that? Because I sure did at the cinema, because I do my part to support the genre. It was wild and unhinged, and did I have fun with it? I sure did. Did you all know Meg Thee Stallion had a supporting role in that? I'm telling you, if you didn't watch it, you're missing out. The thing you need to understand about the modern audience is that they're even more prone to recency bias. We're all being bombarded by more things than ever. There's movies at the cinema, more TV channels than you thought could ever be possible, numerous social media platforms. Do you know how many times I see something explode in virality online, people being the main character of the moment, or more specifically, the villain of the month, and then a few months later, that villain is selling a new makeup palette? The movie musical has survived decades longer than any of the people working to make new things for consumers today. It's more than capable of surviving a few rotten eggs. If you make a great movie musical, there is no doubt in my mind that it will find its audience. Grease 2 is on my wall, and how long did that take to find its audience? I wasn't even alive when this flopped at the box office, even though I know now with every fiber of my being that it's better than the first one.
So that's the way it's gonna be now, huh, Miss Independent?
Yeah, independent. I kiss who I want, when I want.
Bitch slapped me all over my whole entire face.
As I've said before, this whole catalyst to this topic being discussed is not even the release of a few new movie musicals, but the reports on deceptive marketing. Pretending that your musical isn't a musical is not the path to success that you believe it to be. Even if it helps you with a first weekend, you're never going to be able to keep it a secret. People talk to each other, and we have these pesky devices called mobile phones with social media apps on which we amplify our opinions and experiences. What I've ultimately realized from all of this is that you don't do anywhere near the level of market research that you should, and that you don't have the right people on staff to handle this genre. If you want to know how to market a movie musical, you need people who know about movie musicals and probably musicals in general. Some of you may be aware of the fact that I recently did the junket for the new rom-com, Anyone But You. And how did I get myself on there? By being annoyingly persistent as a fan of the genre. I had that movie on my radar for months, and I started talking about it months in advance because it was a modern literary rom-com, and I wanted in on it. You are never going to struggle to find people who want to be on the junket for whatever new cape shit you're peddling, but a modern literary rom-com starring two conventionally attractive white people, that is a subgenre I live and breathe. So I made multiple videos about the film. I tagged various accounts related to it on social media. I asked around to try to find publicity contacts for Sony Pictures. I was doing anything and everything I could to try to get myself in there. And it worked. This is a career milestone. It's my first time ever interviewing a spy kid. Now, as a fanatic of modern literary...
Don't get too trashed and I win bonus points.
When it comes to movie musicals, I don't have as much posted on my channel that would make it obvious that you should, in fact, call me, beat me if you want to reach me for any and all things movie musicals, unless they're trash. In which case, please lose my number. But when it comes to musicals in general, there is no shortage of people online who specifically hone in on that world on a regular basis. I'm what I would call a social media tourist. I like to browse through different virtual ecosystems, one of them being musical social media. There are, in fact, YouTube channels that consistently cover what's going on in the world of musicals. They will go to live shows and review whatever they see. They will talk about whatever the drama of the moment is, things like anything and everything that happened involving Bad Cinderella or the Bridgerton unofficial musical. I will link some of those channels in my description box, by the way. I understand that when it comes to a big press tour, you're going to visit your big corporate media spots, Wired autocomplete interviews, BuzzFeed thirst tweets, and so on and so forth. But here's the thing about those types of interviews. They don't fulfill all the needs to attract the audience that will actually take that extra step of showing up at the cinema. Going viral does not mean the audience you're getting views from will care enough to show up to the thing that you're promoting. Those types of interviews don't always get into the specifics of the movie, musical, or just movie in general that you're trying to sell. If you get a movie musical fan with at least a medium-sized audience on some sort of platform, someone who knows and cares about the art you've put all of this time into creating, they're going to bring an entirely different vibe to a junket. Do you know how many times I've had people say to me, both on and offline, in the last few months, that they were not aware of the fact that Anyone But You was based on a Shakespeare play, but now that I had made them aware of it, they were intrigued and wanted to go see it? More times than you would think. And I knew it would pique people's interest, because that's exactly what piqued my interest. You can't just market research a genre for how it applies to any and every moviegoer. You have to take that extra step of understanding what about that genre appeals to its core fan base. Then you communicate to that audience that you've delivered the things they love about that genre, and they will both show up and bring other people who might have been on the fence and needed someone to nudge them to come see the movie. When I did the junket for the Grease Rise of the Pink Ladies series, I was most excited to talk to Justin Tranter and Jamal Sims because I knew who both of them were, and they were some of the creative masterminds of the music and the dance numbers of the show. And based on the screeners I had watched, I knew they had done a great job with it. So I was out here name-dropping Patricia Birch because I know who that legend is, because I know the Grease movies, I know the work she did for both of them as a choreographer and as the director of the superior Grease film Grease 2. And while I was name-dropping her, what was Jamal doing? He was nodding his head emphatically because he's a professional dancer, a choreographer, working on a Grease show. Of course he knows who Patricia Birch is. Jamal, with this being a prequel series, did you pull anything from Patricia Birch's choreographic language to connect this series to the Grease films and stage musical, all of which she choreographed? And she also directed this masterpiece.
Absolutely. Of course I did. I mean, I felt like I was a student of Patricia Birch. You know what I mean? Like just watching both of the films and being a fan of both of them. I'm actually a fan of both of them. I felt like because I knew every number, it was just already implanted in my body. And so when the choreography would come up, I would say, oh, this is Patricia, and I would know kind of what her sensibility was. And yeah, so really this is like a big love letter to her from me because she did such beautiful work. Yeah.
Now, I know I just said that we're coming off of a slew of bad movie musicals, and that is true. Dear Evan Hansen, Cinderella, and Wonka were all terrible, awful, and I hope I never have the displeasure of having to watch any of them again. However, there are also some excellent additions to the long history of movie musicals. The Grease prequel series I mentioned before, Grease Rise of the Pink Ladies, that show needs more love. It was sadly canceled after just one season, but regardless of that, that one season had more musical numbers than any other show, I think, in the same amount of runtime or the same amount of episodes. It was something like that. I'll find the clip of what Justin Tranter said in our interview. It was incredible just how many musical numbers were fit into each episode. So I really don't know how you got all of that done.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it.
Or know how you did it. It was like so many
30 original songs, more than any TV show in history.
Man.
If you look at it as a limited series, I would say it's still worthy of support. And the mega corporations are really out here playing games, disrespecting artists and disrespecting fans of the genre because they booted that off of Paramount Plus, even though it was an original made specifically for that platform. So if you can buy it on digital or even better on physical media, I highly recommend doing so. Another recent high point, The Color Purple. I felt every emotion, every bit of catharsis that powerful storytelling should do. That movie was an incredible work of art. And just so we're clear, I made my top 10 of 2023 video before I had seen The Color Purple, but if I had seen it before, it absolutely would have gotten a mention. Fantasia, Taraji, and Danielle, those women all deserve nominations, accolades, and more importantly, a massive increase in salary. If you disrespect Taraji, I will take that personally as a fan of hard-working talent. I did edit my pinned comment on that video though, so in case anyone decided to hear my picks for 2023, if they scroll down, they will also be told to go watch The Color Purple. And now we have this new Mean Girls movie musical. I'm filming this video before that comes out. I don't know how long this will take me to edit, so perhaps I will have already seen it by the time I get this posted, but going into it, I have mixed feelings about there being a Mean Girls movie musical in the first place, but I am going to see it, because on the bright side, it has Rapp and Auli'i, and who doesn't love them? And on the other hand, I have a multitude of issues with the original film that I don't want to have a conversation about because I'm already about to hit page 6 of my video outline at this point, and I have plenty of other talking points I would rather move on to next. But I see a lot of films at the cinema because I firmly believe that that is where the films belong. As long as you are not a propaganda franchise, a children's film, or a person convicted of hate crimes that tried to use their celebrity status to get it removed from your criminal record, then there is a decent chance I will show up to see your film at the cinema. So I am willing to give Mean Girls the musical a fair shot. And also, it's January right now, the armpit of the movie season, when the studios, for whatever strange reason, decide to slow their flow as if I'm still not ready and hungry to see new things. But of course, the next big movie musical that's on everyone's lips is Wicked Part 1 and 2. Now, I know I will be there opening weekend, and that's not just because Anthony Bridgerton himself, Jonathan Bailey, is one of the actors. I will be seated because John M. Chu is the director. Let me tell you something about John. I've been aware of him for about 15 years at this point. Step Up 1 might be the darling of the series, but Step Up 2 The Streets is the reason it's a franchise. That ending number in the rain is superior to all of the dance numbers from the first film combined. I said what I said, and I will not apologize for that.
I turn around, do the same next week, come on.
Go look up the scale and scope of the musical numbers from In the Heights, and you will see that if there's one thing John M. Chu will do, it is direct the hell out of a big musical number. And you know for a fact that Wicked, one of the biggest musicals of all time, is going to be given a budget, so we will get production value. The movie musical genre is like more or less any other genre. We're going to have some duds, and we're going to have some amazing works of art. That doesn't mean that you as a viewer should write off the genre, and it definitely doesn't mean that you studio executives should be delulu enough to think that people don't like musicals. What planet do you think you're living on? Because we could be all the way out there on Pandora and there would still be music. It's called a song chord. Liesiowe nete amur on your uncultured focus groups. Speaking of Avatar, by the way, did you know that Wicked Part 2 was originally supposed to be released on Christmas 2025, but they bumped it up to November because of Avatar 3? Because when James Cameron comes knocking, everyone else starts running, lest you be crushed by the weight of Pyakon himself. Thank you all for watching. Support movie musicals, or at least most of them. I do not endorse Wonka. It's terrible, like I said. Ugh. Mean Girls, the jury's still out until I see it in a few days, or maybe I've already seen it by the time you watch this video. Either way, I'm sure my letterbox will know. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to my patrons, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.